In February, they enacted an additional state of emergency to grant new powers. And this bill, Bill 100, takes those powers and makes it permanent into law, no expiry date. And some of those things is arrest without a warrant. They're allowing for vehicle suspensions for up to 30 days, where they take your vehicle away, whether it's a commercial vehicle or a personal vehicle. They can suspend your driver's license, take away your plates for 14 days. And if they, take away your vehicle, you have to pay these costs. And it is what it does, Tamara. It's putting a chill on free speech. This is exactly what this is. And this bill, if you look at it, it's fairly short. It's a couple pages long.
Tamara Ugolini here with Rebel News, and under the alleged progressive conservative government led by Premier of Ontario Doug Ford, Ontarians have seen repeated squashings of the democratic process by way of sneaky legislation and Orwellian worded bills. A mere 4 years ago, Doug Ford campaigned on a For the People platform. His catchy little campaign theme song stipulated that we gotta fight for what's right for the people, and that right now is the time to speak our minds, give us hope, give us change. Have a listen.
For what's best for our lives, for the people, gotta fight for what's right for the people. Right now is the time, we gotta speak our minds, bring us hope, bring us change for the people.
Except that Doug Ford called people protesting to make their concerns and voices heard yahoos.
We have, a bunch of yahoos out in the front of Queen's Park sitting there protesting that the place isn't open.
And was silent throughout the numerous atrocities that took place on protesters throughout the various stay-at-home orders and lockdown measures imposed by his very government since April 2020. Including, most recently, the takedown of peaceful demonstrators in Ottawa, where government arbitrarily froze bank accounts, trampled people with horses, shot at reporters, and pepper-sprayed peaceful advocates. It's the cherry on an already crumbling cake with a shifty overnight voice vote on Bill 100. This bill essentially deems any protest that could even so much as be seen as impeding whatever the government deems as necessary infrastructure as illegal. And it comes with some hefty repercussions. Joining me now to discuss this piece of legislation is MPP for the New Blue Ontario Party, Belinda Carahalios.
Well, first and foremost, how did Bill 100 go on to receive royal assent? And how was the democratic process of passing this legislation upheld, or rather not?
So it was interesting because originally the bill was debated at the end of March. So March 28th, I actually debated it during second reading, and we were able to force a recorded vote. And so what that means is that it goes into the official Hansard transcript and into the official orders of the day. So all MPPs know that we're going to vote on second reading of this bill. So March 29th, we had the vote on second reading of Bill 100, the ironically named Keeping Ontario Open for Business Act, but I won't get into that. And Sylvia Jones, the Solicitor General, her interesting choice of words to name bills that have nothing to do with keeping Ontario open and in fact are a direct attack on our democracy. But regardless, so we had the vote after question period on March 29th, and the only MPPs who voted against it were myself, Roman Baber, Mike Schreiner from the Greens, and Lindsey Park. And the rest of the MPPs present voted in favor, which is shocking. So, and there's a typical way that things roll out. We're supposed to know when bills are debated. So imagine my surprise when in the dead of night, after 6 p.m., after we're done sitting, the government decides to call Bill 100 for third reading. And on top of that, they didn't do the typical, required amount of debate. There's so many hours that are required. They did a couple of hours of debate, if that, and then the bill went on a voice vote, which means that anyone present in the legislature could just voice saying yay or nay, and then the speaker makes a call if the ayes have it, if the nays have it. And there weren't enough members to vote against it, and so it passed. So there's no recording of it there in terms of the official transcripts. So as you can imagine, I was very upset. Mike Schreiner and Roman Baber, they've all vocally spoken out against this, and they're upset about it because it was like we were blindsided. It almost seemed like that the government benches, the PCs, had a deal with the NDPs and one of the independents to just get this going in the dead of night and get it passed through. And as you said, it's now received royal assent.
Right, and this happened late night Thursday, that's April the 14th. Now, previously, as you've already mentioned, you debated against this bill and attempted to squash the vote on it. What were some of your main concerns with this piece of legislation and what it might mean for Ontarians engaging in political activism or dissidents?
So this bill is a continuation of the powers that the government gave themselves in February for the trucker convoy. So they had created a state of emergency, if you remember, back in February because of what was going on at the Ambassador Bridge. And, you know, states of emergency are there for a reason. It's there to be used in an emergency. And these are powers that should never be made permanent. And that was one of my main sticking points of the Reopening Ontario Act way back in July of 2020, when I was the first person to say, like, hang on, all this is wrong and this is an attack on democracy. And they kicked me out of the PC party, and now I'm part of the New Blue Party. So, you know, the Reopening Ontario Act, Bill 195, that allowed for no state of emergency, but emergency powers. In February, they enacted an additional state of emergency to grant new powers. And this bill, Bill 100, takes those powers and makes it permanent into law, no expiry date. And some of those things is arrest without a warrant. They're allowing for vehicle suspensions for up to 30 days, where they take your vehicle away, whether it's a commercial vehicle or a personal vehicle. They can suspend your driver's license, take away your plates for 14 days. And if they, you know, take away your vehicle, you have to pay these costs. And it is what it does, Tamara. It's putting a chill on free speech. This is exactly what this is. And this bill, if you look at it, it's fairly short. It's a couple pages long. It's something that Justin Trudeau would table. And the fact that our so-called conservative government has tabled and passed this bill, and they have no justification for it. You know, and in my debate, I said, you know, if this is so rare as they said it is, why do you need to make it into law? Why do you need to make it permanent? If this happens again, then you call a state of emergency if we need to. And no one looked at the fact that we got to this point because people have been pushed to the limit. They've been told that they can't work, they can't go to school, they can't go to restaurants because of a choice that they've made for themselves, whether it's, you know, being vaccinated and not wanting to partake in it, or being unvaccinated, whatever the case is. The government created this mess. They created the mess, and that's why people had to take to the streets, because they weren't listening.
Well, and so many people who have reached out to their elected officials or demonstrated in front of parliamentary buildings or their town halls or the legislature, they have been entirely ignored for 2 full years. I mean, at this point, what does the government expect is going to happen? It's been 2 years.
That's exactly it. And, you know, I've been hearing it at the constituency office. I serve the people of Cambridge. I do so gladly, and I'm honored to do so. But I was getting people from all over the province. People, exactly as you're saying, they're fed up and they feel like they're not being heard. And I keep trying to encourage people, your voices are being heard. They absolutely are. It's just in subtle ways, right? Unfortunately, with Bill 100, this happened very, very quickly. But I do know that there are many individuals who did write an email, and I would encourage people to continue to do so, not just about Bill 100, but about any future legislation that is coming up. I know we're coming to the end of the term, but it is so important for Ontarians to connect with their elected representatives and let them know their feelings on the legislation.
Now, I just want to go back to the Reopening Ontario Act quickly because, you know, as we've seen with the Ford government, that they put these emergency measures in place without actual states of emergency, and then these laws pass so sneakily and without the democratic process. If you had a message for Ontarians how to get out of this revolving door of emergency legislation once and for all and uphold that democratic process, what would that be?
No, so it's good news because there's another option now politically. So we have an election June 2nd. And we know that all the establishment parties, the PCs, the NDPs, the Liberals, they're identical. They're all the same. They're doing things the same way. All their policies are the same. But the New Blue Party of Ontario is that new conservative option that will stand by their principles. And if you take a look at our new blueprint, which is our platform for the June 2nd election, you will see that we stand by this. We are against pieces of legislation like 195. We're against these vaccine mandates. It's all about freedom and stability and good government. And we make change in this province and in this country at the ballot box.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Belinda. I look forward to seeing how the election goes this year.
Thank you so much for your time. This was great.
As more time goes on and Doug Ford's progressive conservatives continue to ignore their base and enact sweeping legislation behind closed doors, they're certainly not pandering or winning the hearts of any other voter base, which makes Ontarians even more anxious and eager to hit the polls in the next provincial election on June 2nd of this year. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Why not treat the rebel mom in your life to some freedom-loving merchandise? Our Mother's Day special features new designs like Rebel Mom, Rebel Grandma, and My Mom is a Rebel. We have shirts, phone cases, and even a cute little tote bag to ensure that the busy mom in your life has all of her essentials. Check out our latest designs at rebelnewsstore.com. We also have a BOGO deal going on for every purchase. You can use the code MOM25 to receive 25% off each additional purchase. So you buy one and you get one for 25% off at rebelnewsstore.com.